away boots and rolls to his right stop, loads it up, throws down deep in the middle of the field. Rod Smith's got it. Here we go. 30, 20, 15, 10, 5. Rod Smith, Denver, touchdown. Inside the 10, head first. He flies to the 5-yard line. He wanted that first down.
And I tell you what, if you want to tell me the 37-year-old man that's going to win this game.
The Broncos have been in 3 overtime games this year. This time it's another good stick. Got straight to the 30, to the 20, to the 10.
In the pocket is good.
Ball knocked out of his hands. It bounces around. And I think Denver's got it. Von Miller again.
Wilson fires.
Touchdown. Sutton, his second of the day.
Hey, good evening, Denver Broncos fans. Welcome, Denver Bronco Roundups fans. I appreciate you guys coming in here every Tuesday night, 6:30 p.m. to join us. Always talking about your Denver Broncos all the time, every single week. Again, Tuesday, 6:30 p.m. So don't forget, we're always found on the Rocky Mountain Sports Network. Check out the Rocky Mountain Sports Network. Tons of stuff going on. I woke up this morning to news alerts of Rockies trading pitchers and you name it. So always tons of stuff going on over there. All your news, sporting news, I should say, rumors, podcasts, everything's over there. That's us on a lot of nights. So thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to give it you my one co-host for this evening. We got Mr. Jody Moncrief. Jody, welcome to the show, sir.
Evening, everyone.
Yeah, how's your week been, buddy? You know, you got to take a week off. There was no Bronco losses. There were no Bronco wins. Well, I guess that could be determined when we start getting into our topics for this evening. But as far as actually field losses or wins, nothing there. But how was your week? Did you enjoy the wild card weekend?
It was good. Some good games. Blowout last night, but all in all, good games.
Yeah. The one game I really got to spend some time watching was, last night's game. So, of course, it was one of the worst of the weekend. Kind of ranked right up there, it sounds like, with the 49ers-San Francisco game. The 49ers continuing to ruin our late first-round draft pick. It might be the last pick if they keep going. I don't know what we can do about it. I was going to say if we're not careful, but there's nothing we can do about it at this point. We just got to hope and wish and root against, I guess, if that happens to be the case. So,
be a Dallas fan, I guess.
Be a big Dallas fan. I got some friends of the show already coming in. Always our good friend Kenny Kirkpatrick. Evening, fellas. It's Kenny, by the way. In case it doesn't pop up, laugh out loud. Kenny, it popped up perfect, buddy. Got your even your little icon from your Facebook profile picture, buddy. We can kind of see you there for anybody that's doing that full screen. We also got a good friend coming in. That was Kenny from Facebook. We got an old friend of the show, Danny Kitchen, and Danny's coming in from YouTube saying, good evening, gents. Well, good evening to you both. We're going to get into it. With just a two-man show, we're really going to lean on some of you guys' comments, questions, thoughts, ideas. Love to have you guys always as part of the show. So no reason to back off, and I guess nothing really big happening in my week. I guess playoff football is good. Like you said, wild card weekend. We might get a little bit more into that at the end of the show as well, Jody. But let's just jump into some Denver Broncos news. And like I said, maybe not a loss on the field, but certainly a loss in a lot of people's eyes. And the fact that Jim Harbaugh decides he's no longer going to the NFL, he's going back to the Michigan Wolverines. One of our top candidates drops out, obviously, that we were hoping for that quote-unquote big swing for. So what are your thoughts around Jim Harbaugh, man, and him going back to Michigan and what that means to the Denver Broncos? Give it to me, Jody.
I was really disappointed. That's been my number one guy for a while now. He was who I wanted. I mean, he turned San Francisco around with 2 different quarterbacks. Alex Smith, Colin Kaepernick. He's been a winner everywhere he's been, from San Diego to Stanford to Michigan to San Francisco. So, yeah, it was a real bummer.
Yeah, one of the top candidates for a lot of different reasons. Like you said, he was able to turn programs around. Heck, just because of the conference that my home state lives within, Montana State Bobcats, Montana Grizzlies, both end up going up against Fresno State quite a bit because of the conference they're in. So I remember all the way back to where he was in his Fresno State days, through Stanford, through the 49ers, of course, and then to his alma mater in Michigan. But this was a guy who obviously who built programs, who was able to have guys really rally around him and for him, was able to take different quarterbacks and do different things over the years, and be productive. Sometimes I would say besides even with outside of the quarterback itself. So just was a fantastic candidate for us. But one question I have for you before I jump in and just say evening to Sis, because he's saying evening, boys. It's Sis, so appreciate you jumping in here, Sis. I'd love to have you in the conversation. I'd love to see your face in the chat room. So I know that it came out. I know that Denver Broncos media can certainly play a lot of different things, play out the media, into the media, a lot of different things. Did Jim Harbaugh just use the Denver Broncos?
That's kind of how it feels. I mean, they did a Zoom interview. Reports are they never really got serious and talked money. So it seems like Michigan got scared right away when he did interview with the Broncos, who have deep, deep pockets.
Yeah. You go run to the team that has deep pockets and a big need at head coaching. That puts you on notice. And like everyone is saying now, he's going to be the highest paid head coach in the state, at least, which he's not currently. That will certainly change, and he's probably going to be one of the highest paid coaches in college football when it's all said and done. I know that it's not NFL money, but it's where he wanted to be, I think. And I think my biggest question now for you, I had a few different things written down, but outside of him actually officially leaving Michigan, does he get any realistic looks at a head coach in the NFL again? This is twice now. He went for that Minnesota job last year, backed out, went back to Michigan. He went now and he's put his feet out in the water again. Denver and multiple other teams obviously interested, goes back to Michigan again. Can he do this a third time? Will teams take him seriously?
I don't think so. I mean, he's played the game twice and won, so I don't see another team wasting their time anymore. Unless there's some really, unless there's some concessions right up front, like before we interview you, you come out and publicly announce you're leaving Michigan or something like that.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Or he flat out gets fired or something.
Exactly. He gets fired, or he's like, you know what, I won my national championship here in Michigan. I'm retiring. I'm done. I'm walking away. Something like that. To where then maybe, of course, then teams will come knocking. I just don't. If he gets some like 4 or 5 year contract with Michigan, that's renegotiated, obviously a higher rate. And 3 years into it, he's like, you know what? I'm going to listen to, I'm going to dip my toes in the NFL because, there's some need. I just can't imagine a team, maybe there's some of those more desperate franchises, the days of the Cleveland Browns going and doing something like that and still going after him would make sense, right?
And as much as I like Harbaugh, at some point Michigan's going to say, you're going to have to win the big one before you get more for her. You're about maxed out. We can't pay you what Saban and Dabo and some of these other coaches that have won multiple championships.
Yeah, exactly. Or a championship for that matter. You know what I mean? You right. Get that once you get that championship notched on your belt, then you can talk about, hey, we're this close, and I just need, and you wouldn't want me to leave, and we're competitive. I just won 3 years ago, whatever it happens to be. You can still demand that money even off of off of a championship won a few
Right.
years in the past. So, Kenny coming in, he's saying, I think it's smart on Harbaugh. He has Michigan ahead of Ohio State now, and teams should be contending for a national championship next year. Absolutely, he's in place, man. He is in place. Don't get me wrong. This might have been his last opportunity if he really wanted to leave Michigan on his own terms and go into the NFL, while still kind of employed.
And I think Michigan's prime next year. They got their quarterback coming back. I think I read 4 or 5 offensive linemen. Their hurt running back decided to come back. So, I mean, they're all set up on offense. So,
yeah, in a program that's obviously been building. It's not a one-off year. It's not what.
Right, Ohio State will have a new starting quarterback next year.
Exactly right. So it's wide open for him, man. He probably made, in all honesty, he made the right decision. I just hope we didn't get played. That's the big thing. I hope we didn't get played. Kind of feels like we did. Kind of feels like we got used a little bit. But hey,
the only reason I feel like it was played is if he was really serious. I mean, the Penners would have flown him into Denver or vice versa and meet in person.
Well, today was another interview. We'll end up talking about candidates here in just a second, and I think it's worthy to note, though, in what you're saying, we're flying out. The Denver Broncos are flying out to L.A. to meet with Sean Payton. There was supposedly several meetings between the Penners and Harbaugh, but none of which sounded like it was in person, and none of them which got to contract negotiations, as you mentioned earlier, Jody. It just doesn't feel like, I don't know, it seems like he was kind of dragging it along as he could, but he didn't want to look like the bad guy, and ends up recommitting back to Michigan.
I kind of feel the same way with Peyton a little bit. I mean, he rushed into that interview last night with the Texans. It was a Zoom interview. Hey, someone else is interested in me. You better come and get me.
Yeah, that's very true. That's a good way to look at it. There they are. There Sean Payton is trying to play the Broncos just a little bit too, already getting a Zoom interview with the Texans. But I think it is noteworthy to say that we go from Zoom interview with them to a physical interview with us. So get to a few comments real quick, buddy. I'm going to have to look into it here. He said, I was going to read Kenny's comment. Maybe we can make sense of it as I read it. And that's not a jab on the Broncos. Any other teams looking for a head coach? Oh, I guess he's speaking again to Harbaugh going back to Michigan. So Anthony Rivera coming in, saying he thinks we should go for Dan Quinn. We also have, I'll be back, Gary Kubiak.
I'll piggyback off of the one that says we should go after Dan Quinn.
Okay.
Kurt chimes in from the K&K show, either Peyton or Quinn. Thoughts?
Okay.
I think these owners now want to make a huge splash, and I think Peyton is that splash. Just from a lot of people, I think a lot of people will be very sour to Dan Quinn. I think they have that 27-3 taste in their mouth. They have this. It was all Kyle Shanahan in Atlanta. He did nothing.
Yeah. I don't know how I missed you, Kurt. I just want to say that, buddy. I apologize. I scrolling, and completely missed you. It's probably also you that's saying, "What's up, Keith? What's up, Jody?" But yeah, I'll piggyback on that as well because either Peyton or Quinn. I'm hoping the ownership said that and regrets saying that. Let's put it that way. When I say that, I mean saying we have to. We're going a big swing for a coach, right? A big swing for a head coach. That concerns me that corners you in, especially now. One of my big questions to you is, and to anybody out there that wants to chime in, what are your thoughts on this? how much more did that add to Sean Payton's contract if that's who we go with now that Harbaugh has now left the view site? Because when you're talking big swing, when you're talking, hey, we need a head coach, everyone's been talking Harbaugh, Payton, and then tier 2. There's no other person on that same level.
Yeah, I think it jacked it up, but I also think the Panthers being in it is going to jack that up because they have more draft picks, so more assets that the Saints want, and they've got the second richest owner. So money is not going to be a factor for them either. So
money may not be a factor, and you say they have a lot more assets. They may need those assets. Keep in mind the Carolina Panthers and the New Orleans Saints are in the exact same division. So it's not often that happens, that you trade your coach. They're going to make them pay, I guess, is the best way.
And I've went back and forth on that. If he is the QB whisperer and he is this great coach, why are you going to trade him in division to play him 2 times a year? When they've got 2 first-round picks, they're probably going to get a quarterback he's going to get a quarterback that he wants. So, I mean, he's going to groom the guy he wants.
100%.
If he is this be-all, end-all, why are you trading him in division to play him twice a year? That makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
But then I sit back and think, if he's this QB whisperer, he handpicked Taysom Hill, and where did that go? He brought in Jameis Winston, and that went nowhere.
Well, it went fairly well for Peyton while he was with him.
I mean, I will give Peyton,
but once Peyton left, I wouldn't say that Jameis.
I mean, I will
is
give
necessarily
Peyton
a
some
contender
credit
anymore.
that he did turn. I mean, that's probably the best I've seen Teddy Bridgewater play those 8 or 9 games that Drew Brees was hurt.
Yeah, and he took Jameis Winston from being the interception king in Tampa Bay to, actually playing some fairly decent ball when he had to sub in New Orleans. So there's something to be said. Don't get me wrong, but there's this. Okay, we're going to get into our rankings, because once we get into our rankings, we can start talking about these guys, and that'll include obviously Mr. Sean Payton as well. Get into a few comments once again. Hitting Kenny, he says, "See, I'm not a huge fan of Quinn, but I do think he will bring experienced coordinators, which is important." And he says, without giving up the draft pick.
My one thing with that, and I'm really nervous about, is if he tries to bring the old crew back from Seattle and it fails with Russ.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have guys do you trust those guys with a brand new quarterback and starting over? That's my only thing is you got to have somebody that, if Russ fails, what is your plan, and can you develop the next guy? I don't think Russ will. I expect Russ to have a big season, but there is that if. That's why I'm kind of not. I mean, Darrell Bevell, Brian Schottenheimer, those are guys that only getting thrown out there because of Russell Wilson. And if that fails, do you trust those guys to groom your next quarterback?
100%. We got a Facebook user chiming in. This is one of our first quote-unquote Facebook users. So there is a spot. StreamYard allows you to use your name, use your profile. If you don't want to do that, hey, drop your name in the comment. Don't want to do that? Just do like you did. He says, join Bevel for the OC train. There's a lot of different guys out there that are going to be thrown out once we start to get head coach of who all these coordinators are going to be, who sticks around and who doesn't. All right, man. Without further ado, I want to jump into it, man. We have, as far as I can see, 7 candidates still on the board now that Harbaugh is done. We're in agreement there, sir?
Yep.
All right, man. I want to take it from bottom up. So we're going to start with number 7. I want you to give me your 7th pick if you had to get to him for head coach of the Denver Broncos, man. We can run through names if everybody wants to, too. If that's should we do that? I'll
that's
do
fine.
it. Well, no, go ahead, man. I
My
think most
my
people
number
know.
7, and it's only because he has no experience, and it's not because I don't think he's going to be good. I just the last 3 have been first timers that have failed here. Is D'Amico Ryan.
Very good. Very good. I don't think we're going to be too far off on some of our thought processes. Just that being said, D'Amico Ryan, he's put together a heck of a defense, man. He seems like he's the type of guy who commands the respect, which I know this football team I think needs, especially coming off of our last head coach. But he's never had any head coaching experience. He just retired from being a player 8 years ago. So it is a fast track to being head coach of the Denver Broncos, and certainly maybe not that big swing that we were talking for. My number seven is Jim Caldwell, former Lions, former Colts head coach. Not older coach. I don't know how well he's actually going to be able to relate to some of the players. We have a pretty young team as it is, and might be getting even younger as I'm not sure if Kareem Jackson is coming back. We can hit that in our free agency portion, but fairly young team, and we're looking to get even younger when it comes to that offensive line, most likely. So I think, quite honestly, Jim Caldwell had his best days when he had Peyton Manning, and a lot of people can look great with Peyton Manning. 554 winning percentage over 112 games. He certainly has the experience, but for me, he just ranks down the list. I have him at number 7. So
One thing, and he's higher up on my list, but that scares me a little bit. He's 69 years old.
yeah, older coach.
How long is he going to stay?
100%, man. Not going to disagree. A few people real quick. Sounds like J.C. Weaver was, sorry guys, I was the Bevel Train Whistler, ha. And Kenny coming in and saying, full agreement, my 7 would be Ryan also, but number 1 somewhere else like Houston. So appreciate it, man. We've already had a grandpa for head coach as JC, so appreciate it, JC. We don't want Grandpa Vic back again. We might have Grandpa Vic. Oh, yeah, maybe. I don't know. To be determined. All right. No further ado, Jody. Who do you have at number 6 on your list?
My number 6 is Ajira Evero, and it's really only again because of the lack of experience and how fast he's really moved up the list. I mean, from secondary coach 2 years ago to DC 1 year, and then head coach. Not because he didn't. I thought Denver's, the way he called this D was great this year. We've already seen how a first-time guy has been here, and it hasn't been good.
I'm seeing a trend, Jody. I'm seeing a trend. Not all that excited about a first-time or especially those meteoric rising head coach candidates. Maybe not on your list as far as D'Amico Ryans or Ajira Evero is concerned. Well,
I mean, if we were in a different situation, like 2016 or 2017 Kubiak retires or whatever, then yeah, I can see that, but not take a swing, but not after three first timers and 3 massive strikeouts.
Fair enough, buddy. Fair enough. We're going to have some differences, I think, as we start to go through this list. The longer we talk about this, my number 6, I have Raheem Morris, Rams defensive coordinator currently, former Bucks Atlanta head coach. Funny enough, he's actually who took over for Dan Quinn after he was let go. So a previous experience, respected coach, but once again, just to me, a guy that never showed that ability to get it done at the head coaching level. I know that he was a very young head coach at the age of 32. Multiple years in Tampa Bay, had that opportunity in Atlanta to maybe show something. Did not really necessarily turn it around. Obviously, he was not brought back. I don't want to take a stab at a guy that's hopefully going to get it his second time around. Kind of along that same lines as Jim Caldwell. I never felt like he really got off the ground, whether it was with the Lions or the coach. So we're going to hope that it happens this time. I don't know. For me, like I said, Raheem Morris, number 6. So any thoughts on Raheem Morris, or do you want to leave it for when we can?
No, we can go now because he's my number 5.
All right, number 5, Raheem Morris for you. Any other thoughts?
Just a few. Like you said, he's well respected. He's been a coach on both sides of the ball, offense and defense. And hopefully he learned something from his time in LA with Sean McVay, who's widely respected as one of the best coaches in the NFL. So hopefully he learned something from that. But like you said, it's when he was the head coach, he really didn't do anything, didn't show anything. So that's why I have him down the list a little bit.
Very good. Kenny, before we get on to our fully onto our number 5, he has Evero at number 6, only 1 year experience. As you said, defensive coordinator, another that would do better in a Carolina atmosphere, in my opinion. Yeah, Carolina, Houston, he's certainly had some interviews out there. So, yeah, I think we're, for you guys are in agreement when it comes to Evero, I guess is what I'm going to say there. But you guys are in agreement like in everything. So I don't know if you.
I promise we didn't pre-plan this.
Yeah, you and Kenny got together and just put together this massive game plan. I'm out here looking like an idiot as you guys put your heads together. But he has Morris at number 5, better DC than head coach in his opinions. I appreciate the chime in, Kenny. So. No, my number 5, and a lot of this has to do with, again, just everything that revolves around where our team is, what our needs are, and what this coach is going to cost us. So at number 5, I have Sean Payton. And like I said, I think I'm going to differ from a lot of people there. Again, he's retired. He's under contract. He's putting it out there, and I don't know how much the Loomis family is really going to enjoy him speculating and talking about what he thinks the compensation would be needed to go back and forth. Certainly doesn't put the Loomis family in a great position, and quite honestly, we don't know if that's even right. I know at the beginning of the year when it was spoken about what would the trade value be for Sean Payton, they were saying probably a first and a third for anybody that wasn't in conference, and probably 2 firsts for anybody that was in conference or was in division. Rather than conference. So, there's a lot of speculation out there. We're talking about and this is my mindset, and this is why another huge reason I have him at number 5. And it's something that my guy right on the same screen talked about all year long. What is Russell Wilson doing out there? Russell Wilson is out there and he's trying to be Drew Brees. He's trying to be Drew Brees. It doesn't fit him. It's not the right scheme. It's not the right concept. So to bring in the guy who was best known for coaching Drew Brees makes no sense to me. Makes no sense to me. I just don't get the correlation between the two. I know that I was just speaking a little bit earlier about what he did with other guys, Jameis Winston as an example. But at the same time, here's a guy who had a long career with a Hall of Fame quarterback, went to 1 Super Bowl. Also a little stat, there's been no head coach that has won a Super Bowl with one team, went to another team, and won a Super Bowl. So we'd be fighting against those odds just right there. So let me have it if you want, Jody. That number 5, I have Sean Payton. You probably, I think a lot of people are thinking I'm crazy out there, man. So, and you'll have to throw your microphone on there, buddy.
No, he's a little higher up my board, and I'll get into it a little more on mine, but there are some really red flags with him giving up this draft pick when we don't have draft picks.
Yeah.
I mean, he's won one. I mean, people bash Mike McCarthy. He's won one Super Bowl with a Hall of Fame quarterback. Same with Peyton. I mean, so he's a little higher up my board, but I mean, some of the things you said, I really agree with.
Yeah. I'll let you get more into it when you hit your pick, and I appreciate that. But yeah, I think there's just a lot that we're going to be giving up. We're relying huge on this big swing, and I don't know if it's the right matchup with our quarterback. And quite honestly, just when we talk about the persona, everyone wanted Jim Harbaugh for a particular reason. The way he would come into that locker room, right? I don't know if Sean Payton is anywhere near that, and quite honestly, might be on the opposite side of who Jim Harbaugh is. I just, I don't know how well it fits, and it's a big swing, and I might have to get used to that thought process because it's certainly a possibility. But for me, it's 5. I know JC, Payton at 5. I told you it might be a shocker. So I almost, at this point, if Kenny's still out there, I almost want him to give us his number 4 before Jody gives us his number 4, because I think that might be fair. He might I think he's just, he might just be copying you, man. He knows what you're doing. He knows what's going on. Now, Jody, who do you have at number 4, buddy?
I have David Shaw at number 4, and I swear I didn't copy him. And I have David Shaw really only at 4. I mean, he was on Jim Harbaugh's staff in San Diego. Then he took over Stanford. He led them to, that's one of the hardest schools to win at with the academic restrictions there. I'm not going to hold anything against him the last 3 or 4 years because it got to the point where, I mean, you've got 5 stars against 2 stars because of the academic requirements. So, but Shaw was he was in the NFL for 8 years, a quarterback coach. He's put some good quarterbacks in the NFL. So yeah, that's my number 4.
Yeah, well, like I said, I think you and Kenny are putting your heads together. Kenny Kirkpatrick coming in, for anybody who's only listening, saying 4 for me is David Shaw. Don't let Stanford record fool you. Shaw can coach. Man, I mean, obviously not a name that I've mentioned as of yet, so I have him on my list as well. He does not come in at number 4 though. Number 4 for me, I have Mr. Dan Quinn himself. Cowboys defensive coordinator, and of course the former Falcons and former Seahawks head coach and defensive coordinator. Again, you mentioned it in the past, man. The Super Bowl collapse, the talent that was around him, the coaching tree that he had that left him, and he was never able to replenish or keep with him for that matter. There are so many things for me that for Dan Quinn that might be, I guess, red flags. And once again, we get back to that guy that I mentioned before. You're taking a stab at a guy that, we have to hope that he gets it right the second time. I just don't like to be in that position. He struggled to be a winning head coach. He had 2 winning seasons. 2 winning seasons as a head coach in a monster roster. You know what I mean? So for me, I don't want to just hope and pray that he comes in here and he's changed his ways. So for me, number 4, Dan Quinn. So, and hey, I get an agreement at least with JC. JC and me are now on the same page. Maybe he had him at number 4 as well. I guess I'll let you do number 3, man. There's a good possibility you and Kenny just like sweep the board hand in hand, skipping down the yellow brick road. But Jody, give me your number 3 on this list. Who do you got, buddy?
My number 3 is Peyton, and it's for some of the reasons you laid out. I don't like giving up the draft picks, especially if it's multiple picks when we don't have them. I don't like some of the previous coaches he had on his staff that probably will follow him here. One that got fired today from the Chargers and Joe Lombardi, who I think might be who was an OC for him in New Orleans.
Sure was, yep.
Doug Moreau. I'm not a Doug Moreau fan. He was the OC down there and on his staff. That's two guys. And I don't know how well, if he is make or break with bringing Vic back, how that will settle in this locker room with guys that were here last year that frankly came out and said they didn't like playing for him. And now he's back here coaching you again.
Awkward.
So, but there are other things. I mean, he has a 600 plus winning percentage.
Yeah.
He may, I'm not going to say all of Drew Brees, but Drew Brees had a lot of success under him. And not going to deny that he was a winner down in New Orleans. And one other thing I did forget, I don't like that as soon as Brees retired and they got in a little cap hell or whatever, he kind of bailed on him. Why? I mean, he kind of ran. And I'm not really big on that he just bailed right away when it kind of got tough there. So, and he's won one Super Bowl in all those years with Brees. I mean, he had a top 5 quarterback all those years and won one Super Bowl.
Yeah. I'll go back. I'll even help you a little bit in your quest because I had him fairly, I know I had Sean Payton number 5. I didn't have him number 7, but, again, if it wasn't draft compensation for me, he would be higher up on this list.
Me too.
If we were sitting better in draft capital, he would be higher up on this list. We're sitting negative in both those places. We don't have great draft capital. We need our draft picks, so that's certainly hurting him on my board.
And I don't like his stat. I don't like the potential of what his staff could be. I've seen Joe Lombardi the last few years in LA, and he didn't do anything with what everyone claims is a top 5 quarterback in Herbert. I never was a Doug Moreau fan. If he's going to try to bring Vic in here, I think that's going to be
a breaker, man.
Guys that are going to be on the fence like a Draymond Jones and some of these other guys to resign. They're out of here. They're not. They didn't like playing here with him anyways, and they're not going to resign.
JC, and maybe solved your problem. He says, "How about instead of a first for Peyton, we send them Draymond sign and trade?" Yeah, I don't know if that's equal value. We're probably still having to kick probably some late round pick in there because I don't know if Draymond is the same as getting a first round pick.
Well, I think they want the one because they don't have one right now. So,
yeah. Plus, you got to figure a sign and trade and what that means as far as money is concerned, right? Compared to getting a first round pick this year. If you could get similar talent to Draymond Jones with a late first round draft pick, then you're paying, what, 1/20th of the price, about 20% the price, you know what I mean,
right,
for that rookie versus Draymond on a sign and trade. So I just
think their whole thing is even if it's a late one and package some other things up to move up, they're in the market for a quarterback
for certain. If Jameis lost his job to injury, that kind of tells you exactly where they sit on all of that. So.
But there are some other things with him that if he's this be all end all coach, why are the Saints not? What's Dennis Allen done down there? Why are the Saints not saying then come back?
Yeah.
What's more valuable, a first round pick like that or the be all end all coach that they're trying to make him out to be? Come back to New Orleans.
Let's put it this way, man. I think it says more in what you were talking about Sean Payton. Why isn't Sean Payton just going back? He's the one he's coming out of retirement. He's the one who used to be like, hey, man, I took a year off, feeling a little bit better, want to come back. Don't know if you have an opening. Love to get my foot in the door. Maybe I can be in the front office until something opens up. I'm a Saints guy. Love the Saints. Want to be with the Saints. He's
Right.
not saying that. He's trying to get someplace else. I think that, as you said, when things got sticky in New Orleans, he wanted out. I don't think he has any desire to go back, and I don't think the Loomis family, because of that, have no desire to bring him back.
And I
Or
thought
they can bring him
LA,
value.
I thought the Chargers were a real destination, but from all the reports I hear, they are cash poor. So
Yes.
can they afford to? Well, I mean, the report's 20-25 million a year. Can they even afford that?
Yeah. I mean, it's all been said when they had to leave San Diego. They're, splitting the stadium with the Rams. It's never been a pretty situation. There was thoughts that they wouldn't even survive that San Diego to LA. If that didn't happen, they were gone. The Chargers were going to be in a different city. Simple as that. So they're not able to put up the money. They weren't able to put up the money to stay in San Diego like they should have. Let's put it that way. So, yeah, not a very stable. As Sean Payton said, he wanted the ownership and then the front office. That was going to be what was important to him. I don't know if either one of those necessarily sit stable for the Chargers. Certainly not from an ownership standpoint. So. All right, number 3 for me was DeMeco Ryans. I know that he is a brand new head coach. I know that he has had that meteoric soar to the top, but I also see him as a guy that can come in here and automatically command this team and put them in the right position. I think he's the epitome of obviously a player's coach, but he commands the respect. He's put together a fantastic defense down in San Francisco. He's one of those guys, and I think as we kind of go through the final portion of my list, if you haven't put it together already, we're about flipped. I don't want to miss out on an opportunity on a head coach that is maybe ready to make that jump, that hasn't had that record that past, that record that you have to kind of explain and say, well, he's not that guy and he's changed, and underneath these type of conditions, you know what? I like what DeMeco Ryans is all about, and he lands up number 3 on my list, man.
Well, I think he would be higher up my list if it wasn't for the last, and it's probably not good for him, but the last 3 guys kind of ruled him out for me. I mean, really. Because if you look at some of these coaches that have left San Francisco, Mike McDaniels, Solomons, and the Jets, they've all panned out under Kyle Shanahan. So,
yeah.
What makes you think that he wouldn't be just the same?
Yeah. Good strong record off that Shanahan tree already, man. I think he's going to be somebody in this league. If it's not this year, it'll be next year, and if it's not the Broncos this year, it'll be with another team. I think he'll do a fantastic job. I think.
Do you think that this ownership group is panicking a little bit to get someone in here that because of Russ, that they feel like it's now with Russ, you don't have time to. Let's see if we improve a little bit next year, and then year 3 we're back to where we were 2 or 3 years ago.
Okay, well, you kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier when you were talking about, hey, what happens if you bring in Dan Quinn and he brings in all his staff, and then that fails? Well, now what do you do? What if Russell fails next year after you put the staff all together? This is the problem. In a beautiful, perfect world, what we would see is a new GM, a new head coach, and a new quarterback all come in at the same time. You're all aligned at that time. And if you need to make changes, you're all on the same timeline. Let's say you got 2 years, you got 3 years. Let's figure this out. If it doesn't, then we'll start changing things. But right now, we're like all over the board. We got George Payton from a couple years ago. Now we have Russell from last year's trade and a season that's blowing up. And now we're going to bring in some head coaches. And it's just
Right.
like we're like all over and mix in there. We hey, we got a new owner in the middle of all this too. It's like, it was funny to me when everyone's like, "Did you hear what Sean Payton said? He wants a strong ownership group and a strong front office." And I went, I don't know. I don't think that's the Broncos at all. Here's an ownership group who, yeah, they have a ton of money, but do they know anything about football? How many years
But
have
I
they
mean,
had
what?
this league?
When I heard
know?
that, I was thinking, what coach wouldn't say that? Like, no, I want owners that are cash poor and
Front office is just
I
a
don't
wreck.
want a Why don't you give me Zach Wilson and crappy owners? I was like,
I was
come on,
kinda
you're
hoping-
stating the obvious.
Yeah, well, I'm really looking for really bad ownership that I can take advantage.
See, I think when he says,
I get that, but I also, but then also the front office though. Let me finish the front office, and I'm thinking George Payton. A lot of people were like, "Is George Payton going to be back?" I don't know. Maybe he's back. I think he's going to come back. Oh, Penner said he's back. Okay, but he's not going to be really leading the interviews.
But I'll say on George Payton, I don't think that's make or break. If they agree and Payton says, I'll sign the dotted line if George Payton's out, George Payton's out.
Yeah, I agree that. So then the strong front office that Sean Payton was looking for is the one that he's bringing with him.
And I say he can go hire his own GM. I don't think that's the case. From what I've heard, it sounds like he's got a cap guy that'll follow him, that'll kind of be right there with him, and he'll work with Payton, I guess, with input. Or with.
Yeah, I just thought it was funny. Like I said, strong ownership. Our ownership has been here for like 6 months. You know what I mean? Yes, they have deep pockets, but it's not like it's like, man, check out the ownership. I always bring up like the Steelers or someone like that. It's just like strong, or the Crafts. Up with the Patriots. That to me is like a strong ownership group. They've shown that they've been there. They know how to do it. They've been there multiple years. They've weathered the storms. They're not a fly by night. That's a strong ownership group, and a strong front office isn't one that you're like, hey, if I want to, I'll just bump that guy out. A strong front office is like Baltimore or Pittsburgh or something like that, where it's just like, these guys know how to do it.
40 years, 50 years.
Their drafts are right on track, and they know what they're doing. I'm just walking in on the head coach. To me, it didn't seem like it. To me, so
and that's what it's funny you said the Steelers. I brought this up earlier about if you're going to trade a one to go get Sean Payton and you're going to pay all this money, why don't you go try to get the coach you think is the best coach in the NFL?
Agreed.
Whether you get him or you don't, like you're not going to get Andy Reid because they're not trading him in division, but Mike Tomlin or Kyle Shanahan, whoever you think is that guy, go offer that one and all this money in compensation to that team and see what they say.
All of a sudden, I'm like, Zach, Cincinnati Bengals head coach.
Oh, Zach Taylor.
Zach Taylor, another name that you could just go out there and be like, hey, we really like this guy, man. And we're just I 100% agree. If you're going to do it, I've heard that brought up before as well.
Right. Why is Peyton the only one you're going to
trade for? Right? Yeah. I mean, last time this happened of relevance that I remember is when Belichick went to the Patriots, traded from the Jets.
That or Gruden from Tampa to Oakland.
Yeah, exactly. So, but in division too, that was pretty wild back in the day. All right, man.
Yep.
We're if we're gonna get to everything we're gonna talk about, we got to get to your number 2.
My number 2 is Jim Caldwell, and it's for a couple of reasons. I mean, he was a winner in Indy, and he took Detroit to the playoffs. I mean, that's saying a heck of a lot when Detroit doesn't go to the playoffs, and he took them to the playoffs, and he had multiple winning seasons there. So with Matt Stafford and basically Matt Stafford and Calvin Johnson, really, I mean, he had nothing else there. So he is a offensive guy. I think he can build a staff to turn Russ around, and maybe that's the end goal: to hire a coach until Russ is done, and then start all over again. I don't know.
Yeah,
But
I mean, obviously you'd like something long term, but to placate around Russ would not be a bad thought. Go ahead, man.
my only thing that scares me really away, two things really: his age, 69, and he's kind of been out of it for the last couple of years, and some health things. I mean, if you're gonna go down that road, there's some other coaches with the health thing that I'd probably look at, like Kubiak before him. But
Yeah, not a name that's necessarily been brought up or brought around or hit the airwaves, I guess you could say. But yeah, good point. You know, if you're going to bring up Caldwell and his health, why not Kubiak as well? Number 2 for Kenny was Peyton, 49ers pick in the late 20s, even 30s. I'd be okay with giving up if I have a major plan in free agency. That's the problem, Kenny, too. We don't have a whole lot of money to work with in free agency, and maybe we'll get to that here shortly as well. But
it did work with Dusty Baker. I will give Kenny that. I mean, he did win a World Series.
Wait a second now. A manager in baseball versus a head coach in football are like meteorically different, man. I think I could go be a manager in baseball. I'm not even sure what a manager in baseball necessarily does.
But you have to look at it
in comparison. So
in that example right there, though, I mean, the Astros were coming off of, I mean, the trash can scandal and stuff, and they were under all these sanctions and whatever you want to call them, and they brought Dusty in, and I mean, he righted the ship and did something that they couldn't do before, win a World Series.
Yeah. I mean, he cleaned it up, he straightened it out, and hey, I'm a Dusty Baker fan, man. For years and years, that guy has toured the league, man, and I've rooted him on to try to get his World Series for him. So, you know, for him to get one there, that was awesome as well. So, I just, you know, I don't know. You put Dusty Baker on the sideline with Hackett in his first game. I don't think the two of them would have worked out all too well. Let's put it that way. All right, coming in at my number 2. This is where I have Ejiro Evero. So, like I said, this is where we're going to be a little bit different as I get to the top of mine, and we were at kind of near the bottom of yours. Here's a guy that I know is meteoric. He was with the Rams, as a position coach, and then he comes as a defensive coordinator here for us. Just 1 year in, but look at what the guy has done. Look at the respect that he has. He's already inside the organization. You know who you're working with. Heck, you wanted him to be your interim head coach when you got rid of Coach Hackett. That's what you think of him already. He's already got head coaching interviews lined up with the Colts, the Texans, and the Panthers. So here's a guy who is already garnered a ton of interest throughout the league with this meteoric rise. It's not just us looking at him and one other team. It's multiple teams. This guy, I think, is going to be a star in the league. And the reason I have him, especially at number 2, is here he is sitting in our back pocket, and we had the opportunity to maybe have him as our head coach or let him walk out the door and be coaching against him, especially if it happens to be the Colts, Texans, or Panthers. Ejiro Evero, I think, has proven himself to be a very worthy candidate, and I have him at number 2, buddy.
Well, I have one theory. I don't know how realistic this will be, but I have a feeling if he gets a head coaching job, he's going to want to bring Hackett on as his OC and try to stick it to Denver a little bit and say, hey, look, he can coach and he can run an offense that can put up points. I mean, you might have other problems in coaching.
Wow, man. That is
just the way that they were tight. Hackett brought him here. That's what he signed to be a part of Hackett's staff. What's going to really keep him here is a DC he didn't sign up for coming over to be with someone else.
Man, I'm telling you, man, that's like Area 51 conspiracy theory type of stuff, man. I like that, man. That would be huge, man. They are super tight. He didn't want to take that interim label. He didn't want to take over because of his respect with Hackett. They go back a long, long ways. They, like families, their family members know each other and love each other. So I mean, it's like it's big, man. It's that would be insane, man. All of a sudden, the Colts come at us with Hackett and Evero.
That would be that'd be crazy.
That would be insane, man. I like your conspiracy theory, man. It's like we'll have to that might have to be a whole segment, Jody's conspiracies here. We're going to get to a Facebook user question right after we get to our number ones because he's wondering how long it takes to make a decision. But I think after we get through our number ones, then maybe we could answer that question from him. So, Jody, who's your number one, man? I didn't do any checks or anything, so I completely forget who you've had up and down the list. Who's your number one, buddy?
Quinn is my number one.
Okay.
He was actually my number one last year. I easily look past the fact that 27-3. I mean, he was playing the GOAT. He was playing the quarterback that had won 6 Super Bowls or trying to win his 6th at the time. And he takes a lot of that brunt. Yes, he was the head coach, but why does Kyle Shanahan get such a pass when you're up 27-3? We're throwing the ball all over the field, not trying to run the clock out. Just some weird stuff in that game. He has had an elite defense, Legion of Boom. I mean, he has an elite defense right now in Dallas. I mean, that was on display last night. I mean, they pretty much destroyed Tampa.
Shut them down.
Tampa has their own problems. That's for another conversation. But and I think that he will learn from his mistakes in Atlanta. He always had a top 10 offense, even when Kyle Shanahan left. So one thing that does scare me, though, is, and we've talked about it, is bringing the band back from Seattle. If that fails with Russ, do you trust those guys with the brand new quarterback? There's got to be these owners have got to ask all these coaches, you've got to have a plan A for Russ, and if it works, and you got to have a plan B to turn on a dime if it doesn't work with Russ. What's your plan?
Yep. 100%, man. Dan Quinn, like I said, ranked high at my list, number 4. For me, saying I didn't want to basically retread a coach or hope for the best, he was the highest on my list that didn't have any experience already. So I think a completely capable guy. Honestly, if it came down and Dan Quinn was our head coach roaming the sidelines with his backwards hat, I would have no problem. I think he's obviously, as I've ranked him, the best experienced NFL head coach out there and available. So that being said, I got to get to my number one, and then we'll get to who I found out was Sis asking how long does it take. So Sis, I appreciate you jumping in here. My number one is David Shaw. I like what he's done. Similar to what we said with Harbaugh, here's a guy that, again, former Stanford head coach, stepped away, but had Andrew Luck, had Kevin Hogan, which quite honestly made Kevin Hogan look fantastic in Stanford, and Davis Mills, who put up some phenomenal numbers at Stanford. So here's a guy who knows quarterbacks, who can coach quarterbacks, who, as you pointed out, don't look at his record over the last couple of years, because Stanford and their academic excellence has absolutely strapped that university from bringing in any quality talent. What he did was quite amazing, and what he's shown he can do when talent is flowing in his way, I think is outstanding. He deserves a shot. He deserved a shot like 4 or 5 years ago when people were begging him to come to the NFL. That went to, a couple of bad seasons, as you had mentioned, as I had mentioned, and now, he's not the hot name, but I'm telling you, this guy can coach, and I think he would resonate well with this locker room. As if you just look at the way these guys speak, a lot of these guys are devout Christian men, you know what I mean, who praise God every Sunday and every opportunity, and I think David Shaw aligns with that as well. So David Shaw is my number one, buddy. So what are your thoughts on David Shaw so high on my list?
I don't hate the idea. I just whoever it is, I need somebody that can hold these guys accountable. Someone that's gonna tell Russ this, you having all the control and power of whatever the reports are, 5 parking spaces and in your own office, and you're gonna try to be Drew Brees. That didn't work. That it was proven, and it was proven over the last 2 games when you started running some stuff that you ran in Seattle, that's what makes you successful.
Mm-hmm.
But also what kind of staff. It's got to be. Then I don't care if you go get Mike Tomlin or whoever. You got to have a staff around him.
Yep.
That's the one thing that scares me with Sean Payton is I don't like his staff he's had in the past.
Yeah.
I'm okay with his ideas and thoughts. I just don't like
around staffing. I mean,
staffing.
Okay. Yeah.
And who is going to be on Shaw's staff? What are his ties to some other? What are his ties? What's he going to do to come in here? What staff are you bringing?
I think the big thing with Shaw, if you were talking about, again, just all the different contacts that he's had throughout the years. He's had a long tenure. He's a respected guy, and I think he has multiple names that he could possibly bring in. Again, I wouldn't mind even stealing some guys from around the NFL. That's usually the way it happens. It might not have come directly from a staffing situation right directly next to him, but guys that he knows or has relationship with that we may not see that necessarily that string in the coaching, I guess you could say. Facebook user coming in and said, "Why do we need Sean Payton? I don't understand why people are keen on this man. Might as well hire Peyton Manning." I think, quite honestly, I think if Peyton Manning was available, there would be a new process maybe going on. But yeah, I think we kind of hit it as well. I think a lot of people are high on Sean Payton. We might have to get used to that idea, Facebook user, because I think that is definitely a possibility. But he does have a big track record, that comes along with it. He does have a great winning percentage. He's been able to put together an offense that's been prolific. That's a lot of things that checks the boxes of things that we need. And when he was with the Saints, he was there for a long time. He stuck with them for a long time until he didn't. So I mean, we need somebody that can show that they can have tenure in the NFL, I guess is the best way to put it. So, man, I know that we're on opposite ends of the spectrum on this, man. I don't know. Again, I think there's certainly a good possibility of Sean Payton being the head coach. I know that we put together our list. You had Dan Quinn at the top. I had David Shaw. Who do you think's going to actually get this job, Jody? Do you think it's going to be Dan Quinn? Do you think your dreams come true?
I think it's either going to be Quinn or Payton. I think if the Saints are all about all the assets they can get back, I think the Panthers can offer more.
Yeah.
And the money is, it's the 2 richest owners, so that isn't going to be a factor.
Yep.
So it's really going to come down to, I guess, what Peyton wants too. Because if Peyton falls in love with Denver, but the Saints don't like the compensation or feel that they can get more from Carolina or have been offered more, they're gonna kind of force his hand, either go to Carolina or Peyton will just sit out another year.
Yeah.
I think it's down to those two though for me.
All right.
I think they want Peyton because it's the big name, it's the splashy name. They can say, hey, look, we were willing to give up a 1 for him. He's a Super Bowl winning coach.
Mm-hmm.
He did this with Drew Brees. He can turn Russell Wilson around. I mean, it makes sense, all this splashy hire.
Yep.
If Carolina wants him and they want to offer all these assets, and if you break down roster by roster and different things, I mean, a lot of things are comparable, and
Yep.
that's the part. You can't really get in a bidding war on draft picks because you'll lose because you don't have it. You don't have them.
No, not unless you're giving up your entire future years is what I'm talking about.
Or you're going to be
Only
like the Rams minus a Super Bowl. You've mortgaged everything and didn't win a Super Bowl. Haven't even gotten close.
Nope. Yep, 100%. So we got to get to Sis's question, and I appreciate Sis jumping in. Like I said, he says, how long does it take them to make a decision? Well, I'll give you my thoughts, Sis, and then I'll let Jody jump in. I think there's a possibility that within the next 12 to 16 hours, we could have our next head coach. There's certainly a possibility that they don't want Peyton to have another opportunity, and they want to get him wrapped up, and they want to get him under contract before he has any possibility of taking the next interview at all. That's a possibility. If not, I'm thinking it's going to be about 7 to 10 days, because I think we're going to go into tier 2 of interviews, and we're going to take our time because we're probably not going with Sean Payton, and we're going to do our due diligence. We're going to go through a second round of interviews with some of these guys and make sure that we get the right guy. And in order to do that, we're going to need about a week or so in order to complete all those interviews. So what are your thoughts, bud? How soon do we get our next head coach?
I think they're going to try to seal it pretty quick with Peyton. And if the longer it drags out, the more likelihood it's probably not Peyton.
Yep.
And I think Dan Quinn interviews Friday. And if Peyton, I think he interviews maybe Friday too with the Panthers. So you should know something by the weekend where he's leaning. And I think if they strike out on Peyton, they're going to move fast to get Quinn they're going to try to go and make that before he goes and does interviews everywhere else.
So you're thinking by the weekend, maybe we could hear some news one way or the other?
I'm thinking it's one or two, either really quick, like you said, because they've made it where Peyton doesn't leave the building.
Yep.
And the Saints and Denver have agreed on compensation, or or probably by this weekend, if Peyton does get to Carolina and interview and that drags on a couple days, and I think it'll be really quick with Quinn, because you've said you want the big name, and that's always been the big three. So,
yep, fair enough. You know, like I said, I kind of ranked the 1 and 2. Number 1 already, as we spoke of, Harbaugh being out the door. Number 2 being the Sean Payton. Quinn is really close. He is that 1B or 2A. I don't know. It's like he's so close to being in that tier, that first tier. To me, as well as kind of be in that second tier. So for me, I think it takes just a little bit longer if it's not Sean Payton. We do our due diligence, and we kind of roll the dice, I guess you could say, on Quinn, that doesn't bite us by doing our due diligence and him going somewhere else. I'll get to one last one from Kenny, and then we have a couple other topics, but see if we can blow through maybe some ideas, at least on them. He said, what are your thoughts on potential coordinators who should be available with experience? Offensive coordinator Jay Gruden and defensive coordinator Jim Leonard. What are your thoughts on Gruden and Leonard, Jody?
I don't think either one of them really. I'll just take my top three real quick. I think if it's Quinn, you'll see somebody like maybe a Brian Schottenheimer or Daryl Bevel or even Justin Otten. Justin Otten was on his staff in Atlanta. I think one of those three. And then DC, I think they'll push hard if it's Quinn to keep Evero. I mean, they do run a little bit different defense, but I think he'll learn from Packett and what he did in Atlanta and be more of a the whole team manager, not just try to call plays and stuff. If it's Peyton, this is where I don't really like. I think you'll see somebody like a Lombardi, who just got fired from the Chargers, or Doug Marrone, somebody like that. I'm not really a big fan of.
Yep.
DC, Vic has been tied to that. I think that'll go over horrible in this locker room. If and then Caldwell, I mean, he's got ties with some other guys. I could possibly see Shaw as his OC. I could see one guy I'm not really in favor of is Pep Hamilton, the OC that just got fired in Houston. I don't like that idea, but or you could see even like a Morris or something. He's a DC right now, but he was an OC too. So, I mean, it's technically not a lateral move if he jumps from DC to OC. So you could see something like that.
Yeah. A couple of good names. I'm probably a little bit more in love with Jay Gruden than you are. Thought maybe he got a bad rap in his go around and deserves some opportunity to come back and maybe have that offensive coordinator position again. So I'm so on Jim Leonard. I'll just leave it at that. But
I think he stays in college. He's going to try to get on somewhere in college. I mean, he was in Wisconsin. He was their interim.
Yep.
So someone's going to try to pick him up. So
that's fair. And to be honest, I could probably do a little bit more homework on my offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators. So a lot of that just comes with the staffing and do your due diligence after that. It seems like so. Jody, we'll try to do this really quick. First, I just want to say a big shout out to Willow Seasonings and Blends. Willow Seasonings and Blends is our sponsor. They're a fantastic seasonings and barbecue sauce company. You can check them out at willowseasonings.com. Our good friend Dave actually went in for some elective surgery today. Came out looking great and sounding great, it sounds like. So thank you, Dave, for updating us and letting us know you're doing all right, buddy. Get on the mend, and can't wait to see you back in the chat as we usually see you here in our Denver Bronco Roundup chat. So get better, friend, and anybody who wants one of those blue ribbon Kansas City first place seasonings or sauces, head over to willowseasonings.com or check them out. They're all along the range there, the front. You can check them out in stores all along in Colorado. So check them out. They're on all the Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and if you need any direction, they can certainly give you some direction from there as well. So Kenny's saying, I have all the seasonings. Now he needs to start ordering all the sauces. Yeah, they got a couple, buddy. Sweet Thing is pretty good. I haven't cracked the 1889. I'm not usually more of a mustard-based sauce guy, so I'm going to have to check that out, though. So
the Sweet Heat is killer, though.
Sweet Heat is killer, man. I like the Sweet Heat. That's usually what hits our ribs is the Sweet Heat. So we just did those last week 10 days ago. Anyway, always good. Of course, Willow Seasonings makes it happen. So, buddy, I just wanted to hit some free agents, man. We have a ton of free agents that are coming up. And maybe you can just hit me with a few names that really stand out that you think need to come back to this Denver Broncos roster. Because quite honestly, when I was going through them, we have a ton of guys, man. It's not like, we got a few guys that could that come off our roster. There's a lot of guys that we could possibly bring back. Who are some of your top names that you want to bring back to the Denver Broncos this next season?
My two big ones are Draymond Jones and Alex Singleton. At first, when Alex signed here, I thought core special teams guy,
Yep.
whatever, but 50 bottom of the roster, 53 guy, whatever. But I mean, he's earned that starting spot. He may not be the fastest, but he's a tackling machine, and him and Josie Jewell played well together, and that was not a weakness this year, covering tight ends or really anything. So, and Draymond Jones, I mean, when Denver is completely healthy with Randy Gregory, Baron Browning, I mean, he was an elite for a defensive tackle, 7 sacks this year. I think that's someone you're going to have to resign to. Those are the two big ones for me.
Yeah, we're going to be in agreement. I just need to also put Kenny. Kenny's coming in with all the tips really quick on some of the Willow Seasonings.com. He says, sweet heat on corn on the cob on grill in Summers, fella. Now you got me thinking about, firing up the grill a little bit early. Thanks a lot, Kenny. I appreciate it. Top two names for me as well, man. I had Draymond Jones. I had Alex Singleton. I think you're absolutely right. Draymond Jones is at one of those anchors on the front line at DT. And absolutely a monster. Would love to be able to bring him back. And Alex Singleton, obviously, I championed this guy from the day that we signed him. Of course, he's an MSU, Montana State University graduate, and went on to Philadelphia before coming to the Denver Broncos. And, outperformed all expectations, even from myself. I thought he was going to be able to provide some speed at the linebacker. I thought he would be put in situations, especially once again the injury bug kind of bit us, and what kind of put him into the rotation as Jonas Griffith was actually slated to be alongside Josie Jewell originally. So Alex,
yeah, he's made it where Jonas has lost his starting spot.
Yeah, he's far down on my list, buddy, of all the free agents that were a possibility, because he's another one. I just don't think he makes the list this year, as far down as I had him as well. So Alex Singleton, you need to bring him back. His instincts are much stronger than his speed. He's always seems like he's in great position, and like you said, absolute tackling machine. So third name I had on my list, your thoughts on Latavius Murray, buddy?
Yeah, I think that's another important guy. Because I don't think Javonte Williams week 1 is going to be 100%. There's no way.
Yeah.
Coming
100%.
off of he pretty much destroyed his knee. So you can lean on Murray with Chase Edmonds sprinkled in. And I think you're going to have to do something there. But I think he showed that he's not the most explosive guy, but he can get you positive yards. He doesn't fumble. And he could be a very key piece until if or when Javonte Williams comes back.
Yeah, well said, man. Like I said, that's why I had him number 3 on here. You also got to figure that Edmonds really needs to renegotiate a contract. He's not a free agent. He's actually under contract, but we can let him go, obviously, for a small
Right.
hit, but he can also come back if he renegotiates. So Latavius Murray, to me, is the easy sign right off the bat. Get him.
And see, that's an important position that no one really wants to talk about with Russ. I mean, for Russ to be elite, he needs an elite or well above average run game. And every year that he had killer numbers in Seattle, it was because he had a really good running game. I mean, from beast mode to Carson to, he had good running game. And I don't care if he Tom Brady showed last night throwing the ball 66 times. It doesn't work.
Doesn't work.
And it's not going to work with Russ. He's going to have to run the football. Denver's going to have to make a commitment to that. And I think Murray, he may not break 20-yard runs off all the time, but he's going to get you positive +3, +4 every time, and that keeps the chains moving.
Yeah. Kenny's jumping in. He's saying you need a poor man's Christian McCaffrey running back, whether it be Gibbs from Bama in the draft or Tony Pollard in free agency. He's saying, please steal Pollard from the Cowboys for us Giants fans. So I appreciate that, Kenny.
Oh, I would love Pollard. I just think Pollard's going to get huge money this offseason.
Yeah, we're not the only guy looking at him, and unfortunately, we don't have the deepest pockets to go running. I'll just go through a couple other names, or at least one. I think that we have a decision to be made. Kareem Jackson said he would like to be back playing in the NFL right after he was done with the season. He said for this team or another team. So I think we also have to make a decision whether we keep PJ Locke around or Kareem Jackson. If you had to make a choice between those two, buddy, because again, we don't have the deepest pockets. We can't be signing everybody. Who would you go with?
If you bring Kareem back, I think Kareem needs to kind of be under the understanding that he probably is not going to be a starter next year, and it's more of a rotational role.
Okay.
Is he going to be willing to want to play special teams or not? I mean, I think that's what it comes down to. I think Caden Stearns is primed for that position next year. And I could see bringing PJ Locke back. I mean, you probably get him on a cheap deal. You could bring both of them back, but I'm drawing a blank. The first guy you said,
PJ Locke.
No,
Kareem Jackson.
Kareem Jackson. Sorry, Kareem
No,
Jackson. I think he's got to be under the impression that he probably most likely is not going to be a starter on this team next year.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of where I'm at with having to make that decision, because I don't think you keep Caden Stearns, PJ Locke, and Kareem Jackson all three on the roster. I mean, it doesn't seem to make sense. You have other holes to fill. You're not going to put a bunch of money towards that one position. I think you have a decision to be made. I think it's PJ Locke, quite honestly. I think you keep PJ Locke and Kareem Jackson has to go. PJ Locke is a lot more likely to be taking that special teams role, as you were talking about. He's going to be a lot cheaper, obviously, as well. And you have maybe some longevity that you're not going to have with Kareem Jackson. Hate to see Kareem go, to be honest. K-Jack was a big part of that deep secondary, and Simmons really valued him there. I think he'll certainly miss him if Kareem Jackson isn't around. There's a lot of other names on here, man. I don't know how many we want to get to.
I have one big one. What do you think of
go
Dalton
ahead.
Reisner? Dalton Reisner.
See, and he's a little bit further down on my list, buddy, but he is a name. The thing that we got to figure is, for me, everyone's like, hey, we need to scrap this whole O-line, and we need to start basically from scratch. Well, that's fantastic, and that's great, but, again, we don't have the capital in either the draft or in our pocketbook just to go out there and get a top-of-the-line O-line from scratch. We're going to need to have a few guys kind of in rotation. He's on my outside edge, man. I don't think he makes it onto the Broncos, to be quite honest. He would have to kind of take a discount a little bit, I think, for the Broncos to want to make that deal, and I don't think that's something that Dalton Reisner necessarily will need to do on this market. I think that he can get money out on this market better than what the Broncos would be willing to offer, and because of that, I don't think he's going to be sticking around. But he's sitting right on that edge for me, just because, gosh, we're going to need some rotational guys, if nothing else. Not necessarily a starter, but as a rotational guy, sure would be good to have maybe a guy like him around. So, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the market's going to push Denver out of it. I think he'll get a not top deal, but he's going to get a upper tier deal, and I think Denver is not going to be willing to pay that.
Yeah. I got a name for you since we're throwing last ones out at each other. How about Isang Bassi?
No. I think you're going to get Ronald Darby to restrict. Ronald Darby's either going to restructure or be gone.
Yeah.
Because he's 10 mil underwater. And then Davari Mathis, I think, is primed to step right in. K'Wan Williams is going to be back. And his name is escaping me. The corner that played the last game, I can't think of his name. He played really well. And there were multiple guys on the team.
Lamar Jackson?
no, his name's escaping me, but there were multiple guys on the team that said that they expect things from him next year. So
I know
I
who you're
think
talking
he's
about
just-
too, but I forget the
I think
name.
he's just down the list enough that no. I think he's a no for me.
Okay. Kind of surprised on that. How about Cam Fleming?
But yeah, I think you got to bring him back. He's a rotational guy.
Yeah,
Because
I'm
he
right
can
there too.
be serviceable at left and right tackle. He started both there, both sides. I think they let Calvin Anderson go, and he's a heck of a. I mean, he can play both right and left.
Mm-hmm. Got to give a quick shout out. Adam's coming in here a little bit late. Adam and Kayla. So it says, "What's good, family?" Not much, buddy. What's up with you? Good to see you. Good. I appreciate you chiming in and jumping in the conversation. So,
I have one for you. What about Andrew Beck?
That was a question for me too. Honestly, I don't have him necessarily on my list. I think Andrew Beck is a guy that we can probably upgrade in his position as he's actually sitting at fullback. And that brings me to a name that I had for you because kind of plays a similar position. What do you think about Eric Salbert?
No, not
No?
really. I think I would rather Andrew Beck, and I would go with Greg Dulcich, Alberto, and Andrew Beck, who can be your blocking tight end and fullback when needed.
Yeah, I would like to see us kind of upgrade that fullback position. I think if we got a true fullback and we have someone like Latavius Murray back there and a fullback, that's deadly. You're talking about that running combination that you wanted to get going. That's deadly right there. Because I tell you what, if Javante comes back and he's healthy with a good fullback in front of him, I'm telling you, that would be fantastic. So I just think we can get an upgrade there. But I'm in agreement because I think when he's talking about Dulcich, when you talk about Albert O, when you start talking about, for me, it was Salbert coming back because I really liked what he could do. He seemed like a great blocking tight end, was really coming on as a receiver from time to time. So he was my guy. It played more that tight end and role than the fullback role.
See, and I'm not a fan of like what Dallas did last night, putting your offensive lineman back as a fullback. I don't like that.
Mm-hmm.
Get a true fullback out there that actually knows what he's doing back there and not just, hey, you hit hole A or gap 3. I mean, he knows what to look for in different things. And if you're going to have a fullback, get a true fullback that can block.
I agree, man. Because there's nothing like that fullback going through the hole, maybe chipping that guy and then going second level, and he knows exactly what he's doing and where to go. Yeah. I just think we can have an upgrade in that position. It would be fantastic.
But you can watch teams that run the ball well. Look at Juszczyk. He's still a utilized fullback in this league. So
100%.
I mean, it's not a dying position. I mean, if you can catch the ball out of the backfield and block, I mean, for all the knocks of like Melvin Gordon, he was a hell of a blocker when he was back there, and that's what you need in a fullback, someone that can block.
Yeah, agreed, man. You can put him back there. He can
especially with Russ, the way Russ isn't your normal stand in the pocket. I mean, he's holds the ball forever, spins, does weird stuff back there. You need somebody that is protecting his blind side all the time.
I agree, man. I agree. Last name I had on my list, Marlon Mack.
I wish we would have got to see more of him.
Yeah.
I think Mack is more of a wait and see, depending on as you get closer to OTAs where Javante is. If you get to OTAs and he's, that he's not going to be close, or he's probably going to likely start on PUP or something, then you're going to have to. Latavius Murray and Edmonds, I don't think is enough. Back there, you're going to need one other guy.
Yeah. My list of free agents, I just think that are gone. I'll just go through them, and you can tell me I'm crazy on any of these guys. But for my for sure's were Brett Rippon, Eric Tomlinson, Mike Boone, Corliss Waitman, Lamar Jackson, and Jacob Bobenmeyer. Our long snapper. So that was injured for.
I think Waitman might be back. I mean, he didn't give up a lot of punt returns. I mean, he if you go look at his numbers, I think the leader was like 50 some yards. He was like 48 or something in punt.
Okay.
So I think he was decent, and he's probably going to be cheap. I mean, unless you can. I mean, do you want to waste a pick on a punter in the draft? I mean, you don't have any picks.
Yeah.
So I think you can live with him back there.
Live with him back there for another year. That's fair. That's fair. I could see that. I just know that there was let's say Jerry Rosberg. It seemed like he wanted a little bit more out of that, as well as just the return game as well. Let's put that.
Do you see a new return next year, or do you see them giving that back to Montel?
I think that I think that he's got to be basically, if not named the starter, but in the contention for a starter next year as far as returns are concerned. You hope that he turns it around. I just think you've invested a little bit too much just to wave it off, and I don't think you want to. I don't think he has the skill sets just to be a receiver. So if nothing else, you're basically moving on from him.
I think he's on a short leash though, not this.
Oh,
I mean, he was on a as long as leash as he wanted with Hackett. Hackett was not going to pull him, so.
Yep. No, he was a darling. He was a Hackett darling. Kenny does ask, who do you think will be, unfortunately, what we call a salary cap casualty?
Two guys for me. Bowles and Ronald Darby are both $10 million underwater. So
that's fair.
Darby for sure, I think, is either.
That had to be mine.
Coming off, he's hurt. This is his last year. It's either take a deal, or he's gone. Bowles, I think, is a little more tricky because, he still is probably an above average left tackle. But he also strikes me, and I've heard this from other reports, that when he makes a deal, it's done. Don't try to change it on me. So the only thing I can maybe see is he might have to do some cap restructuring, and they pay him out in other forms to make up for it.
Yeah. Which you can do. You can restructure with him. That would be easy. So you hit the nail on the head with the first one, though, for me. Ronald Darby, I just look at how much he was missed on the field. He wasn't missed on the field. I don't see any high value for Ronald Darby on this football team at this point. Certainly not to where his contract is.
Right.
And to just go ahead and let him go and, see if you can find pieces and parts to back up. You didn't rely on him all this year. He didn't come out. He didn't hit the field. He wasn't second string. Nothing like that. Again, I just don't see the value in bringing him back. You could go younger. You could bring in a different talent, different skill set. Heck, maybe it's a cornerback that can also be a returner for all we know. But
the only other one for me is Graham Glasgow. I think he's gone. I'll try to pull it up here. He had like 10 holding calls per PFF, and horrible. I think it was like 10 holdings, and it was bad.
Do you know? So I actually, I don't know, heard this, read this. I can't remember where, but Graham Glasgow. Do you know what his original position was in college? The one he was highly regarded at?
Tight end, I think.
Right tackle.
Right tackle.
A position he's never, ever, ever been played at in the NFL.
So he had 10 penalties and gave up 5 sacks, and that was in only 12 starts. So, that's
said,
not good.
For a guy that's playing the interior and gave up 5 sacks, I don't know if I want him to be playing right tackle necessarily, going up against the edge rusher. So maybe not the best transition there. Buddy, I know we touched on it. We should probably get out of here, but do we want to hit wild card here real quick before we get out? Wild card weekend?
Yeah, we can. It was a great weekend of football. 49ers are dominant, and every week that they continue to win is one lower draft pick Denver gets.
That's for sure.
I think they're going to have a QB battle on their hands next year with Brock Purdy and Trey Lance.
100%.
That defense is
believe it.
elite. Shout out to D'Amico Ryan. I mean, shout out going and getting Christian McCaffrey, huge. And then shout out to all the Giants fans here. I think the Giants are going to have a tough decision this year. Do you tag Daniel Jones, or have you seen enough to go pay him probably big time money? I mean, you're probably going to have to pay him 30, 35, 40 million.
Yeah, just don't let Kurt Valente hear anything about that, man. He does not want the Giants paying that much money.
And then last night's game, Dallas destroyed Tampa. I don't know what Tampa's doing. Tom Brady throwing the ball 66 times, running it 11 times. That's unreal. I don't care. Tom Brady, Joe Montana sitting back there 66 times. You don't even try to run the football. I mean, they were playing like Madden offense.
Yeah, they looked at me like my first year playing Madden offense. I saw those 4 seams. I was in love, man. Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head, man. I honestly, I thought the Seahawks were going to put up a fight. But the funny thing is I heard another pundit kind of talking. How fair is it that the 49ers had to beat the Seahawks 3 times? How fair was it that the Bills had to beat the Dolphins 3 times? These are 2 teams that wouldn't have been in the wild card not that long ago with the new setup and the bye round and the whole 9. So they went out, they got the job done though. All said and done, at least they didn't falter. But it is something to be said, having to try to beat the same team 3 times within a single year. That's a lot of tape to see on another team, and so hats off. 49ers 41-23 over the Seahawks, and the Bills 34-31, and what shouldn't have been a nail biter, but was a nail biter for the Bills as it kind of came down the line. There was nothing better than seeing the Chargers charger it up.
I missed that
Jaguars.
one. That was great.
That was insane, man. I'll be honest. I don't know if you saw it. There was a guy that put a $1.4 million bet on the Chargers when they were up 27-0 to win the game. That $1.4 million bet would have netted him about $12,000. He lost his $1.4 million as the Chargers only put up 3 points and the Jaguars put up 31. I can't imagine that poor guy. So that's insane. Hats off to Kenny's Giants, as you said, man. 31-24 over the Vikings. Kirk Cousins once again proving he's Kirk Cousins in the playoffs. I don't know what else to say, man. Here's a team that looked like they were every year they're destined with great talent on the roster, whether it be quarterback, whether it be receiver, whether it be running back. They can put up some phenomenal stats, but when it comes to the postseason, the Vikings just cannot get it done.
I think Daboll pretty much cemented Coach of the Year after that game.
That's fair, man.
I mean, for what he's done with Daniel Jones from last year to this year it's pretty impressive.
100%, man, 100%, and went up against another first-time head coach and one of my favorites in Kevin O'Connell. Unfortunately, like I said, they kind of came up short there. Bengals and the Ravens, man, that was kind of an ugly one. Bengals didn't look super superior, I guess is the best way to put it. Ravens kind of put up a fight in that game, even being down Lamar Jackson, who didn't even.
What are your thoughts on him not playing? I mean, Michael Vick and some other guys called him out, put a knee brace on and play. RG3 came out and said, I played like that, and it cost me my career. I mean, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts.
He's going into a season of getting possibly paid. Do they tag him? Do they bring him back? I mean, what do they do?
Yeah. For him not to be on the sidelines was what really killed me. I mean, I understand if you're like, hey, man, I'm hurting. I'm not there yet. I'm not going to ruin my career. I'm not going to be in RG3. But to not be on the sidelines, to stay home, is what killed me. He'd been there before. He was just there last week.
Yeah.
I don't understand why he didn't make the trip. He couldn't have been in such excruciating pain that he didn't think he could stand on the sidelines and support his team and root him on. That's what really bothers me. That makes me feel like he's got as much of a foot out the door as he does have, at the negotiating table. I think honestly we could see Lamar Jackson someplace else. A lot of people are already speculating the Jets as a possible landing spot, which would be a game changer, man. Game changer. So
yeah, I don't think he's coming back. I mean, from what I think that I would roll 1 year with Tyler Huntley and see. I mean, he's not Lamar for sure, not elusive like that, but I mean, he can throw the ball and he makes smart decisions other than trying to reach the ball over the goal line.
If for some reason Lamar is out the door and you have to rely on him for a year or two before you get into position, just to see what he has, even, you know what I mean? You might be able to. You can stave yourself over, I think, with a Tyler Huntley. It's not devastating. I think him getting all the first team reps and all the offseason, the whole 9 yards, could do him quite a bit. I think he could do
and if they were sold on him, I mean, he's already won an MVP. They would have locked him up. I mean, there's been hesitation there for years.
Yep.
And, I mean, you would have thought that the MVP would have put that to bed, and it hasn't. And I think this year was all the proof you needed why the hesitation was there.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think he almost kind of proved it to them too, though. As soon as he got injured and he sat out, where did the team go? The team went exactly as Lamar went. You know what I mean? If he's not out on the field, they weren't producing. And, when he was off the field, they struggled. I mean, I think it was kind of, again, I think Lamar's trying to show them it's a power move by him, and he might be out the door. Kenny doesn't think Lamar is coming back. In big camps, I don't think Lamar is coming back. He's saying Jets, Panthers, Patriots as possibly landing spots as well.
To be honest, though, I mean, coaching lost that game for the Ravens. I mean,
terrible time management.
They, and I heard someone say, once you've seen Trevor Lawrence reach the ball out like that, someone else was going to try that when he did that on that 2-point conversion. Yeah. I mean, Trevor Lawrence is 6'8", and it did not work for Tyler Huntley, and that really that was a 14-point swing. You're going to take the lead, and now you're down 7.
Yeah, that was devastating. They would have had a hard time making a run in the playoffs beyond, but yeah, they pushed the Bengals. I'll give them that, man. They pushed the Bengals. Joe Burrow did not have the prettiest days. He got done what he needed to get done, and they come out with that 24-17 win, but it wasn't the prettiest thing that I've seen from the Bengals. Of course, they struggled in the first round last year, too, and then going to the Super Bowl, so I guess
that's why I've always been the grass isn't always greener on the other side when Ravens fans say fire Harbaugh. I mean, that was a bad call probably, but I mean, he gets you in the playoffs every year and in contention, so I mean, there's a heck of a lot worse out there.
Yeah, be careful what you wish for, believe me.
Right.
You could be in constant head coach turnover as some organizations know.
6 years not going to the playoffs is a lot better than being out of it at week 14.
Yeah, or being absent for 6+ years.
Right.
Last game that we have on at least on my list, you already touched on it, but that Cowboys and Bucks game. Honestly, there was a lot of people that were saying the Bucks were going to go in there. They were going to shut down Dallas. Man, Dallas went in there and smacked them in the mouth, man. I tell you what, at halftime, this team already looked like they had to put to bed. I was like, well, maybe this will be another one of those, Charger Jacksonville games where Tom Brady comes out second half, puts on a show. The show never showed up, man. And quite honestly, I'm not sure how much Tom has left. That's a big question in this offseason as far as what he does and what team he goes to or doesn't go to, or the broadcast booth and the whole 9 yards, because I don't know. It certainly, Tom looked, if nothing else, he looked checked out in that game. I'll give you
I thought he, from the beginning, I mean, he had his hat on backwards. It just seemed in pregame that he was feeling it, and he had all his weapons back. Julio, Mike Evans, Godwin. I thought that Dallas is going to get ran all over. I mean, or thrown all over. But I mean, when you, I still can't believe they threw the ball 66 times and ran the ball 11.
That's amazing.
I don't know what they were trying to do. It didn't work. And Kenny says, well, "Are the Cowboys that good or the Bucks that bad?" Yeah, I think both.
Yes, the answer is yes. Very good. I like that, Jody. The Facebook viewers are coming in saying Tom to the Jets. Ooh, boy, that would be something else, man. Seeing Tom.
I don't think he's going to San Francisco. I mean, that makes no sense to let Brock Purdy or Trey Lance go for 45-year-old Tom Brady.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's the direction that a Kyle Shanahan wants to take this this franchise and in the 49ers franchise. I just can't imagine them. It just doesn't make sense to I mean, how many years do you have a Tom Brady? Right now you have such a young, explosive offense. I don't think Tom Brady fits in.
I mean, I'll resign Jimmy G before I bring 45-year-old Tom Brady back.
100%, man. 100%. Even off the injury, I'd take him. So,
but that is probably the game I'm looking forward to the most next week. Is San Francisco and Dallas. I think that's going to be a heck of a game next week.
100%, man. That's an old school. That's a throwback, man. I remember the NFC, one of the best NFC championship games coming down to those two guys back in the day, at least back in my day. So, did want to say, if the Bucks were trying to accomplish anything with those 66 passes, maybe it was Byron Leftwich being let out the door, because that happened as well. And
yeah, he did get fired.
He it was just a couple of years ago, man. He was like, man, maybe he's a potential head coaching hot candidate, man. Now he's out the door as an offensive coordinator. So, well, Jody, we went way, 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 way too long, and we're gonna wrap this up. My final thought I just wanted to hit real quick is we had, we've had a rough go at it, of it as of lately. It was just recently put out in the last week. Ronnie Hillman, his celebration of life ceremony was recently held. A lot of former Denver Broncos showed up for that. I even heard reports that the current ownership kind of helped pay for that all to happen, along with some coordination of Peyton Manning. Ronnie Hillman, unfortunately, passed away from rare kidney cancer at the age of 31. And the reason I bring this up is because it seems like those past backfields have been, Denver Broncos backfield has kind of been being hit as of late. Ahmad Galloway, we're also going to be talking about. Now, he wasn't as well known, 2003 7th-round draft pick out of Alabama. He hit our practice squad, got injured, and actually ended up getting picked up by the San Diego Chargers and cut, and then spent a few years over in NFL Europe. Nonetheless, there was people like Nick Ferguson who remember Ahmad Galloway as well. He passed away at the age of 42 years old, and currently he was a teacher and a coach in the state of Missouri. So our thoughts and prayers go out to both Ronnie Hillman and Ahmad Galloway. And again, just want everyone to have all these people in their mind and their hearts, because the last one I have is Peyton Hillis, and we were talking about fullbacks not that long ago. Peyton Hillis, fullback for the Denver Broncos, it was in critical condition. I believe he's now in stable condition as his ventilator's been removed, but he was involved in a partial drowning accident while saving his children from drowning, and had extensive damage to his lungs and kidneys that he's still dealing with and trying to come back from. Still in the hospital. Peyton Hillis, former Madden cover Peyton Hillis, if I remember correctly as well. Our thoughts and our prayers go out to him for his recovery at this point. So, sorry to end it on that, man, but what a run for our former backfield, and it can all stop right now. We've had our three. That's enough, and again, thoughts and prayers to all those families as they struggle to go through losses or recoveries right now. So, Jody, you can leave us on any higher note than that as well if you wish. So,
just looking forward to playoffs this weekend. Some great games. Giants, Philly, Buffalo, Cincinnati, the game that we didn't get to see. Dallas, San Francisco.
Yeah.
And then hopefully by our show next Tuesday, I'll call it now. Denver has a new head coach. Who that is, I don't know yet, but I think by next Tuesday they have a new head coach.
We have a new head coach in the building, man. Well, if that's the case, man, we'll have another great show just like we had tonight. Maybe a little bit shorter as we went super, super, super long tonight. Jody, I appreciate you joining in. I appreciate all the viewers, watchers, subscribers, all the comments that you guys gave us tonight, all the questions. Kenny, Sis, man, we had the Coppolas coming in there. We had tons of people jump in and now the conversation. So thank you everybody for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for jumping in here every Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. and catching this 1 to 2 hour show that we try to put on. It seems like every week. So without further ado, thank you guys. Appreciate it. Check the roundup next week. Until then, we're out of here. Good night.
Elway boots and